Good morning. Still alive in Hong Kong. I don't live anywhere near where the tear gas and protests are taking place. That's in the city. I live in the suburbs. But it's disconcerting, and we will see that more protests are planned for the weekend. So, and a strike on Monday. A strike is being called for Monday, so we'll see what's happening. But you know, life goes on, and so do movies. Now, I'm going to talk about two films today. The first one is a Singaporean film. It's actually played pretty much everywhere except here, which is really surprising. Well, and I say it's surprising because it's Singapore, and we're Hong Kong, and it's not that far away, and we do have a lot of cultural similarities, plus economic similarities as well. But on the other hand, as I've said many times before, that although our government keeps telling us we're Asia's world city, we are anything but Asia's world city. The fact that a movie like this, which is not a big movie, but that it should play everywhere else except here, really shows that we're not leading edge by any means, and that applies to many things other than movies. But anyhow, so enough of my political ranting. So the movie is called Ramen Teh, T-E-H. Teh is the Malaysian word for tea, or soup. I think, well, tea, soup, whatever. And it does have an English title, Ramen Shop. Not a great way to translate. More like it should be ramen soup, not ramen shop. But anyhow, that's what it's called. Now, just to ask something to think about, are there any foods that you have that really take you back to your childhood days? For me, I have three foods. The first is grilled cheese. Absolutely, to this day, I love grilled cheese. And the second is butterscotch pudding, which I actually haven't had in a long time, but every time I do have it, it reminds me of my childhood. And the third is very weird. It's banana quick, which I think today is called banana Nesquik. Um, Love it. Also haven't had it in a gazillion years, but yesterday I had some bananas at home and they were starting to get old, get soft. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to make myself a banana milkshake. So, threw some soya milk and bananas in and whipped it up in the blender and brought me back to my childhood. So, those are the three things: real cheese, banana, chocolate, butterscotch pudding, and banana milkshake together. Have to be all three. It has to be all three together is like nirvana for me. But anyhow, for Masato, who's played by Japanese actor Takumi Saito, he, by the way, I'm not familiar with him, but he directed and starred. I don't know if he started. He was in a movie, but he directed a movie called Blank 13 a few years back, and it got tremendous praise. So he plays this fellow Masato in the movie Ramen Teh, and for him it's his mother's bak teh, which is pork rib soup that warms his soul. Now, bak teh is very interesting. I haven't looked it up on Google Translate. So you have teh, which is like tea, soup, kut, which is it's like Cantonese. Guat is bone, and bak. It's funny. Bak is it sounds like pork, whereas in Mandarin and Cantonese, Jew. Probably wrong tone. Mandarin's Jew. I don't know the tone for Cantonese. So it's definitely it's a little mixture of English and Chinese and Cantonese and all mixed together. Bak teh, pork rib soup. So anyhow, bak teh warms his soul. And these days, Masato's soul is anything but warm. He's a chef in his family's tiny ramen restaurant in the city of Takasaki, which is in central Japan. And Masato wishes that his father Kazuo, played by Tsuyoshi Ihara, very actually relatively famous actor in Japan. If you see the movie, you'll see him, you'll recognize him. Sure you will. He wishes that his father would pay as much attention to him as he does to his ramen soup that he serves to his customers. Now, after the father, Kazuo, dies, suddenly Masato finds a suitcase that contains the memorabilia of his mother's effects, and his mother died when he was 10 years old. So, wishing to reclaim his mother's memory, he decides to go to Singapore and hopefully find his uncle, who's played by Singaporean actor Mark Lee. He was in The King of Mahjong. And he wants to ask the man to teach him how to make his mother's soup recipe, and he'll bring it back to Japan. And this is how he'll connect to his mother. Sounds good. So with the help of Mickey, who's played by 80s pop idol, Japanese pop idol Seiko Matsuda, and I went to school in Japan. I remember Seiko Matsuda. I was there in the 80s, and she was huge. So she plays an expat Japanese food blogger living in Singapore. He's not only with her help, he's not only introduced to the wonderful richness, complexity, variety of the local cuisine, he's able to reconnect with his Singaporean family, and he learns why they've been estranged for so long. So that's what the film's about. Now, yeah, Seiko Matsuda, that really blew me away. I was like seeing her on the screen going, oh my God, that's Seiko Matsuda. I haven't seen her in like 39. Oh, I'm getting old. 35, 37 years. 37 years. I'm not getting old, I am old. Anyhow, this is directed by Singaporean director Eric Khoo, who is, he's the guy who's like, single-handedly revived the Singaporean film industry. The guy's a force to be reckoned with. And this movie, Ramen Teh, is both a love letter to his hometown and also to the people everywhere who made that special food that remains, a part of you today. Now, the film, as I said, the film premiered. It's already been out everywhere. It premiered last year, so a year ago, February. So what are we in June? So, 15, 16 months ago. It premiered at the Berlinale Film Festival as part of the culinary cinema section, and now it's finally here. I know why it's here now, but I mentioned this many times before. It's going to go on TV. You're going to have to release it to the cinema before it goes on TV. So, though Misato's family situation can be described as being complicated at best, Khoo strikes an optimistic note at the end that says coming together over a good bowl of pork rib soup can heal any family rift. If only that were true. But anyhow, it's very nice, very optimistic. Now, not surprisingly, the film features a fair bit of food porn, as well as a brazen advert for Singapore tourism. But the food porn that we see is nothing like what we saw in Jiro Dreams of Sushi, that amazing documentary about a man who makes sushi in Tokyo. Oh my God, that was just salivating after that. Or Tampopo, that wonderful comedy about ramen and making the perfect bowl of ramen from many years ago. Or even the two Midnight Diner movies that we've seen over the past almost decade now, and all the TV shows. So, but there is food porn there. Now, while Saito makes for a convincing lost soul, his wistfulness can get a little bit tedious after about an hour. But fortunately, just when the movie it just gets too much to bear, Uncle Wee, as he's called, who's the Singaporean actor Mark Lee, he enters the story and gives it a much-needed jolt of humor and energy. There's a scene with Uncle Wee teaching Masato how to prepare the ingredients for the perfect bak teh, and it's a riot to watch. I mean, I suspect that he ad-libbed a lot of the dialogue, because I think you couldn't script that. It was too spontaneous. It looked very spontaneous. It was really good. Now, there were a few minor characters in the film that are used as plot devices. They were completely unnecessary. I think had the writing been tighter, the writers, there's two writers, I can't remember their name, they could have incorporated those characters into the characters that were already there. You had the Japanese food blogger, you had the uncle. They could have been incorporated into those two characters, because there's a Japanese woman who runs a bar in Singapore. There's a Japanese man who runs a ramen restaurant in Singapore. Didn't need those characters. Could have moved what their purpose was for the story, moved them into the other characters that were there. But anyhow, not such a big deal. So that being said, Ramen Teh is perfectly harmless fare. Its heart is in the right place. It does get bogged down in some schmaltz, which is the Jewish word for over sentimentality, but it also means fat. So, here we're talking about food. Schmaltz is a good analogy. If I have to explain it, but, and I know this goes out to people who don't know what the word schmaltz means. So anyhow, I have to say, so it does get a little bit over sentimental at times, but I'll tell you, at the end of the movie, I was going, I was pretty close to tears. So not bad. It's not a bad film. It's a harmless film. It's sweet. It's a little bittersweet at times. Not bad at all. So that's called Ramen Teh. Opened yesterday in Hong Kong. Has already played everywhere else around the world. If you haven't seen it yet, yeah, I'd say check it out. There's far worse films than this one. And one of those far worse films is Men in Black International, which also opened yesterday, and I think it opens today in North America. Oh my God. Now, it's hard to believe that the first Men in Black film starring Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones came out 22 years ago, 1997. Seems like yesterday. But what's harder to believe is that Hollywood can't seem to let this franchise rest in peace. You had two very disappointing sequels in 2002 and 2012, and now you have this sort of sequel, spin-off, reboot, I don't know what you want to call it, today. Now, the reason, I guess, I'm speculating here, there's probably, any number of reasons why they keep making sequels from this film, on this franchise. It could be that the first three films made 1.655 billion US dollars, or it could be that Hollywood can't come up with any new ideas. Probably both, But I'll tell you something. If anything's going to kill off this franchise, it's this movie, Men in Black International, because what we have here is a failure to relaunch. This is really, oh God, this was such it's a disappointment, because it's about as memorable as, let's say, your mind would be if you had been hit by a blast from the neuralizer. If you've seen the first two films, it's sort of that pen thing that they put up to people, and this blast comes out of their minds for the past few minutes go blank. That's what this film is all about. So on paper, though, you would think this should be a good movie, because it stars Tessa Thompson and Chris Hemsworth. They were both in Thor Ragnarok. He's Thor, by the way, and in case you didn't know, she was Valkyrie. They had great chemistry together. So you'd think, wow, they're back together. It's like Spencer Tracy, Katharine Hepburn. Maybe this is going to be fantastic. It also stars Emma Thompson. She reprises her role as Agent O. You have Liam Neeson. Steven Spielberg is the film's executive producer, and it's directed by F. Gary Gray, who did Straight Outta Compton from a few years back. Excellent film. So you'd think, wow, this has really got all the ingredients for a good film. Unfortunately, it's about as exciting as day-old cream of wheat. Not one joke hits the mark. One comes very close. There was one that maybe you might have laughed. Unfortunately, it was pipped to the post by 1 week, because last week was the release of X-Men Dark Phoenix, and they had the same joke. So, they blew it. Also, the joke is in the trailer. So, if they're putting your best joke in the trailer, that by the time you see the movie, you're like, okay, I've seen the trailer. I know this joke. So it really reveals a lot when the best joke is in the trailer. So, I was amazed. I'm sitting there, and look, I'm going to be honest here. There was twice where a few people in the audience laughed at some of the jokes. I didn't laugh once. I was just thinking, this is really such a dull, boring film. It's not like it's boring that I'm looking at my watch every 20 minutes or every 10 minutes. It just was flat. So the story begins about 20 years ago, when 7-year-old Molly witnesses her parents getting neuralized by a pair of agents after her father sees an alien. Now, Molly sees the alien too, and she helps it get away. So as a result of that close encounter, Molly makes it her life's mission to join that secretive organization of black-suited agents. Now, fast forward to the present, and adult Molly, who's played by Tessa Thompson, she tracks down the MIB headquarters in New York and asks them to hire her. And if you've seen the trailer, you know that scene as well, because that scene's all in the trailer. So Agent O, who's Emma Thompson, agrees to take Molly on as a trainee agent, and she gives her the name of M. I was really surprised. You didn't work that hard. You got Molly M. It's like, you got to wonder if everybody else's name was the initial they're given. I don't know. So, and immediately she assigns M to MIB's London branch, which is run by T, or as the people in London call him, High T. Ha, 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 ha. Not funny. Okay, and High T is played by Liam Neeson. Now, T's star performer is H, played by Hemsworth, and H and T, High T, together 3 years earlier, helped neutralize a threat from the Hive, which is like a Borg-like alien. If you know your Star Trek, it's a Borg-like alien that takes over bodies for an entity. So H, Hemsworth's character, is like the star performer, and he knows it. He's got this swagger, and he's cocky, and he's what do you want to say? He's not easily managed. Let's put it that, because he knows he's good, and he knows he's good looking. So where have we seen that before? So anyhow, she's paired with him. Now, whatever chemistry those two actors had in Thor Ragnarok is vaporized here. It's like there's no chemistry at all between them. I get that these two characters are supposed to be like chalk and cheese. Ha ha. That's the thing about Men in Black, is that they're supposed to be very different. And H is definitely the cheese here because he gets all the cheesy lines. But the playful banter between them it doesn't seem real. It seems forced. It doesn't seem natural. And added to that is the story that really is short on substance. There's a twist that you can see as far away from from Alpha Centauri. You see this twist coming, 20 minutes into the movie, what the end of the movie is all about. And the direction is rather uninspired. There's scenes that could have been crazy funny, and they were like, yeah, and so this is it's a very dull movie. The film's only bright spot, and that's barely, is a tiny alien by the name of Pawnee, who's voiced by Kumail Nanjiani, who wrote and co-wrote and starred in The Big Sick last year. You know what? A competent director would have let Nanjiani go to town with the one-liners. You think about, let's say, Robin Williams with Aladdin, the animated version of Aladdin. Okay, Nanjiani is no Robin Williams, but he could have riffed a little bit, and maybe he did riff. I don't know. I think he could have come up with something a lot funnier than what he was given, what we see on the screen. So I have a feeling he wasn't allowed to riff too much. Well, with any luck, the 3 strikes and you're out rule would apply here, and we'll finally be able to bury this franchise. Somehow I doubt it, though. I have a feeling there's going to be another one. So please, somebody neuralize me, because I can't take this anymore. This is really a horrible movie. Do not spend money going to see this movie. I actually saw it in IMAX 3D. It's playing at my local cinema, and I went to see it yesterday morning because the press screening was last night, and don't want to get into why I didn't go last night. But anyhow, I went yesterday morning, and I saw an IMAX 3D, had a nice seat right in the middle, because, I hate seeing a 3D movie when you're off to the side, because it's dark and you just can't see anything. So, at least I had a good seat. Not worth 3D for sure. Not worth IMAX for sure. Not worth the price of a ticket. Terrible film. So that's called Men in Black International. Thumbs down. That's it for this week. So have a great week, and if you live in Hong Kong, be careful. See ya.